one bottle too. Did you see I put bienvenidos on the wall? Hi, I'm Susan. Megan. Hi. Office of Sustainability, right? Yeah, I remember you. I think I came to one of your sessions, possibly in this very room. I think so. Yeah. I was in the session too, Marie. Great that we've got some sustainability folks to learn if you like changes. We got 3 more minutes. And the purple cards are for doodling on the other side, and there's pencils and things. So if you would like to start doodling, I will be asking you to sketch a tree. So if you are an overachiever and want to get started on that, or you want to think about a tree to sketch, you're here early, you can get a head start. I opened 2 of the blinds in case you needed to look at a tree and get some inspiration. But if we've got landscape architects and grounds crew and sustainability folks here, and you're already thinking about trees.
Only by marriage.
Only for what?
Only by marriage.
By marriage. No, but you can probably look at and think about trees from time to time.
But it's done joke. It's
it's don't have to be, the trees, they get in our way because we have to leave around them at the very least. It'll move. So if you're on the inside, you might want to grab one of the Be Like a Tree cards. It's not required, but you choose. And you can vote for all of us.
for you.
Well, you can hog them all. Maybe no one will sit in your row. And then you get to look at all of them. You can take whatever you want. I will ask for them back, but the purple cards are for drawing. So you can write whatever you want on the purple card. Hello, welcome. We're going to get started in about 90 seconds. So grab a card that Be Like a Tree on it. I like to start on time, and it's 10:59. So if folks wander in, no worries. Thank you, Sudbury, for sitting in the front row. You get extra bonus points.
I like the girl with professors.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. You will be graded. Yeah, that's kind of a sore subject because I missed allocated points in Canvas last semester and then missed the grades, and when some of them graded everybody like a half a grade lower, and then I had to change a bunch of grades. And anyway, don't talk to me about your big numbers. All right.
And read that. So
Thanks. All right, 11 a.m. Let's get started. I'm going to tell, so we'll figure it out. Sorry. So, and Holly's back. I didn't even say I have to take off points for Holly being late. Just a minute, Holly. All right, everybody. Welcome to Be Like a Tree. How much time do we have for this session? It's 11:50. So we're going to get started by you thinking about a tree. So go ahead. You can close your eyes if you'd like. It helps you bring to mind a tree. It might be a tree from your childhood, like I fell out of one and broke my arm. You got really in my mind. It might be one that you're looking at right now out the window. Maybe there's one you planted or in your home environment, or just a tree you really like on campus. Since you brought to mind that tree, I'd love for you to just pick up a pencil or a pen, and on the flip side of the purple card that's in front of you, just draw something from that tree. Maybe it's a leaf, maybe it's the whole tree, maybe it's, the bark. Like shiny. I should have put it on the subfolds. I'm going to put on a song by Casey Musgraves to aid at drawing. Got good foresty lyrics. There's a big word for the chain. We say, unity through our breeze, all of the trees, and all of the trees. There are voices that are already going. A billion different languages, songs we sing. It's nature. To look out for each other, the heart of the world. Welcome to be drawing. I'd love for maybe 2 people to see it. like it's sorted a tree, you don't have, there's no artwork, but I would love to be about to hobby. Faithfully develop trees, if it's negative. Yeah, I thought my first golf, like 7 years ago. Nice and loud, yeah. And it was when it's fun, and like my dad was helping me move it, and I'm like, he's like big dog with the dog, like my dad was like already how much it be right. But it wasn't like it was on. So I didn't know what I meant to do that box. Big shout out to your ass and it's black, but it's all that way you should I did. I mean, I would call that in. But love you. Love it, love it. You wanted something and you had it. You reason no. There's what anyone else like was saying, it's still here, you guess. So my let's take evidence to other I heard or smoke, but in the heart, and the little side of my front piece and my whole fucking string on. So when all the bees come down, this pretty stone, so I can give the sound receives. I want never I get it up. That's right up. And we really up to it. I also talked to the red maple holding on a lot to the drum. It's a real connectedness to place and nature. I love it. I love it. And especially, it's in a different ecosystem, and that ecosystem different from here, right? But always changing. We're thinking about trees moving slowly as ecosystems change. And so you get to be part of multiple ecosystems and talk to trees in multiple places. So this session is called Be Like a Tree. There's more content on the tables and in our brains about trees than we could possibly share in the next 45 minutes. But we're going to touch on some topics. And how about trees, of course, and how it relates to us as humans, but also how it relates to us as teams, like how a forest is kind of like a team, just like we might be like a one tree. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we kind of see those parallels or metaphors, feel free to share, because that's kind of what it's about. Like, right, we're comparing humans to trees and teams to forests, but that's not always obvious what those parallels are. So I teach in a very interactive way. I'll call on you. I encourage you to yell out, raise your hand, whatever. We're a small group, we're family. And I think this is being recorded, but I didn't even know that. So I'm just focused on you all in the room. I think, this is going to be on something somewhere, but I'm not really worried about that. So Casey Musgrave started us off. She has a whole nature themed album. I'm not really a country music person, but her music really speaks to me as she speaks to the language of trees and forests. And there's a lot of, nature themes in music. I'm sure we could all name some things in music that have inspired us related to nature. And to start us off, in addition to drawing, I just want you to breathe. So go ahead and take a few just deep breaths. You seated now, you can stand up and breathe. And just really appreciate that breath as it happens. Maybe kind of like visualize it going in, filling out your lungs, oxygen transfer, that carbon dioxide being created, and then we exhaling it out. So again, just breathing in that mix, that life-giving mix, nitrogen, oxygen, etc., and then breathing out the carbon dioxide, which we like oxygen in that air mix. What do trees like? Yell it out.
Carbon dioxide.
They like carbon dioxide. Yeah. So we are not like trees in that way, right? But we are symbiotic with trees. So go ahead and give us silent or out loud gratitude, prayer, thank you to the trees for granting all this oxygen for us to breathe. And I'm curious, on your sketches of trees, did anyone draw the roots of the tree? Yeah. So we often think about the part of the tree that we can see and not the part that's underground, right? That Casey is talking about here, where they're communicating. And there's a lot about us that you can see. And there's a lot about us that you can't see that's going on inside here. Another parallel that we'll kind of explore. So in this training, we're going to review the cards that are on the end. We're only going to get through like 7 or 8 of them. There are 13 total. But this is one of them. And then I also have suggestions for action, right? Like we're not trees, but we can learn from them. And there's stuff that we can like learn from these things that I'm pointing out. So basically I'll point out a thing about a tree and then have a suggestion for like humans. So for example, suggestion might be to touch grass, as the kids say. And a factoid, anyone heard of Shinrin Yoku? It's the Japanese term for forest bathing. And it's a powerful practice. And part of the science behind this cultural practice is that trees emit enzymes. In fact, microbial volatile organic compounds, Santiago can explain what that is, that are not only beneficial for their health, it wards off pests, but it's beneficial for our health. We've studied what happens when humans breathe in phytoncides. It seems like it should kill the plants because phyton is plant and sides is kill, but it's actually what the plants create to kill their pests. And so they're creating these compounds. Like if a giraffe nibbles on an acacia leaf, the acacia tree will be like, giraffes are coming, and release the volatile organic compounds that tell the other trees to make their leaves bitter right now. And then the giraffes are like, oh, it's acacia time? Well, these leaves are bitter. We're going to go to a different patch of acacia leaves. As the first tree that got nibbled warns the other trees. So they're talking to each other. They're releasing compounds that then help us. When we breathe in these compounds, our natural killer cells, our cancer-fighting cells increase. And this lasts for days. It doesn't just last for like the few minutes that you're in the forest. Not my opinion, it's science. I didn't do the science. I believe the science. I hope it's not, made up. So just being around the trees is helpful. And we'll do a forest bathing field trip in Battery Kimball Park in our strategies of stress management class that I'm teaching this coming semester. So opting outside, I think that's REM's term. I mean, not REM, REI. REM, great, Michael Stipe. Until I learned about mushrooms, I never knew that Michael Stipe had a mushroom name. Anyway, REI is opt outside or touch grass, right? So just go outside. Here we are on an arboretum campus. You can forest bathe on campus. Not really, because it's pretty cold through the deer, sorry, Jeff, but it's good enough, right? So that's me. Follow me on Instagram, Professor Comfort S. Nonprofit Wellness is the nonprofit group that I co-founded. And then there's a few of the environmental jobs that I've had to kind of ground me as a like environmental teacher. The last two are kind of weird. Tinkergarten with a preschool nature company class that I taught for, and Vrikshasana. Anybody besides Holly know what that means? I'll give you a hint. It's in Sanskrit. Vrikshasana. Oh, you know what Vriksha means? Or Vrikshasana? Everybody stand up. We're going to learn yoga pose. It's tree pose in yoga. Vrikshasana. So Vriksha is tree and asana is pose. And so it's a little awkward to do with shoes on if you don't want to mess up your pants, but I don't really care. So you basically put your foot on either. You can just do a little kickstand version with your heel on your ankle. I don't know if you can see it here, and that kind of keeps you. You can like grab a wall if you want some stability, or a table. You don't want to put your foot on your knee because that can provide some instability to the knee. So either down here or up here. Yeah. And then you kind of find your back to maybe bring your branches out. And if you want to make it hard for yourself, my whole thing is like destabilize. So you have to force your balance, you can like wave around, see when you like step out, because that's like the edge, right? So other side, gotta do both sides, Vrikshasana. The other way you can do Vrikshasana is this is harder on the hips and knees, but if you really want a knee stretch, you can put your foot in front and also gets the sole off of your pants. So it's just balancing, right? That's all tree pose is. It's just balancing on one leg and feeling, right, that like when you go off balance, like that's the recovery that you're trying to work on as a balancer, right? We always destabilize, and how can we restabilize ourselves? That's just the yoga piece. I don't really have to do with trees, but thank you for playing. Holly is a yoga teacher. What else might you mention about Vrikshasana?
Well, I think what you just mentioned is that it is very integral to what I think you're talking about today, right? Because you said this is about balance, and what if I'm wobbly that day?
Yeah.
And you said you gave us permission get help. Yeah. Touch a table, touch the wall.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like regarding trees in general, it's the same type of thing. Like they're branching out and they're telling us they need help. And a lot of times as a human, I am not going to tell you that I need help. You know, so I feel like it's connected in that way for what you're talking about so far, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Whenever I call on people, they always come up with like different things than I would have thought of. So thank you for bringing that. So I didn't come to trees naturally. When I first started doing environmental work, is all toxics. This is when I got my breast milk tested for 42 polybrominated diphenyl ethers, PBDEs. That's my son who just graduated college. This was a long time ago. I worked for EWG, Environmental Working Group, which is a big toxics and health and farm subsidies and health group. So I wasn't like big nature person in my jobs, but I did get grounded early on. This was, these are my friends, Ellen and Stacy, and this is a redwood tree that's now probably gone because it was on privately owned lands that got ravaged by investment bankers. But anyway, this is one tree, and you can see the size of the people. And you can see the depth of the bark. And this is, who knows how old this tree is, probably hundreds of years. So I do like kind of been around some nature, but it was only recently, only since COVID that I really dove in and started to like learn about trees and like figure out all the trees on my property. Like, oh, I have a dogwood too. And like yank up all the English ivy and be like, well, wait, should I yank this up? Is that a native plant? I don't know. So learning about mushrooms, learning about all of this has been this big journey for me over the last 5 years. So today we'll learn some about teams and trees. We'll use our cards and hopefully spur some future action steps for us, the humans. So another card. Anybody have the Be Sweet card? Okay, so I'm going to call on you for an example. The card says that tree blossoms provide nectar for bees to make honey. Many of them do that. And then many trees provide fruit that delights many animals, including us. So my question for those of you with the Be Sweet card is, what do trees produce that you enjoy? And hopefully you have a different answer from each other.
Definitely fruit.
Definitely fruit. Nice.
Well, on my way to work today, I noticed a number of little acorns that were in our neighborhood. And I think about, I get super excited when I see squirrels. I envision all sorts that you want to know the program. But yeah, I'm very happy when these trees make the nuts that fall to the ground and feed the squirrels on my neighborhood. And that's making me feel like it's good.
And the squirrels in turn plant some of the trees because they can't remember where they planted all their acorns. And yeah. So any particular kind of fruit you enjoy?
Carrots.
Yeah. Those are some bestsellers for sure. So it's funny. I used to work with beekeepers, and so I know a lot about bees and bee making or being honey making. And so the next slide is funny, but here, like, we want to be just grateful, right, to the trees for all they produce for us, not just the air that we're breathing, the fruit that we're eating, the nectar that bees collect to make honey that we then eat, steal and eat, and just the ecosystem, right? Without pollinators, without like we just wouldn't have an ecosystem. So we should just be grateful for that. We kind of take it for granted. In fact, we kind of take it for our own use, and we're like, who cares? But that's just not the way it's supposed to be. So lanternfly honey, anyone heard of that? Because of the lanternflies. And so the beekeepers, is a small aside, honey is changing because of the lanternfly invasion. And did anybody read about this? I don't want to be the one to tell you. John, tell them how lanternfly honey is made.
Well, so actually, I do some beekeeping here on campus too. On the American Grain Center, we have two beehives. So basically, the lantern flies, which are an invasive species that comes from East Asia originally, have any natural predators here. When they will collect like their own nectar, they'll produce waste, and then because that waste will be rich in like sugars, the bees will come and they'll take those and bring that to their hives, and then it'll go through the same process of making honey. But sometimes people don't realize there's different like flavors, grades of honey, so it comes out tasting differently. And there's kind of this thing, they're like, oh, it's made from lanternfly poop, and so I mean, it still goes through the process of turning into honey. So, but yeah, so it's kind of making the most of situation that we just have.
Bees are like, hey, here's a sweet liquid. You know, it's like if you're hiking and you really want to see butterflies, try peeing because the butterflies are attracted to the things that are in urine. And so bees are like, oh, sweet liquid. Let's put that in our nectar stomach, bring it back to the hive, fan it down, make it into honey. Nature adapting.
Wow.
Anyway, that was kind of an aside. But in my self-education, these are some of my teachers. Some of you may know John Powers or Suzanne Simard. Richard Powers, Peter Volbane and Robin Wall Kimmerer. These are a few of the books that I've really gotten a lot of inspiration from. Has anyone read Overstory by Richard Powers? Yes. This author, Suzanne, is probably the inspiration for the deaf forest scientist in Overstory. Anyway, if you've read it, that's a cool piece. But lots to learn about trees. I won't go into all those books. This is my house where this white oak died. A lot of white oaks have been dying in this region. And the good news was it allowed me the clearance for solar panels on my house. The bad news is I had to take down a tree that I loved. It roots maitake, the chicken of the woods, or hen of the woods. I can never remember which is which, at the bottom. And so, again, learning about trees, I was like, oh, it'd be cheaper for me and better for the ecosystem if I left a snag. So the suggestion here for humans is to leave snags. Now, I will say they're not as popular as grinding the stump where you can then plant a thing or whatever because it looks ugly. And so I don't know, John, if you suggested that we leave more snags at American when we cut down trees, if American would be like, yay. But they should, because this is a huge benefit to the ecosystem. I have watched more woodpeckers and turkey tail fungi and maitake and squirrels and birds. I mean, I have a screen porch over here, so it's basically like a nature watch. Plus, it holds up my slack line. But leaving snags is kind of a ugly but super beneficial thing that we can do. Anybody ever left a snag or have snags? Yeah. It's on purpose, or you have a big forest where it's just natural? Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
About 15 feet tall.
Yeah.
Branches, it was elm.
And did you get any feedback, or people are like, why is that there? Or
I know, I got a good neighbor who liked the idea as well.
yeah, great. I have other neighbors who cut it down to here and then hung bird feeders and planter. You can make it look nicer. I didn't, but it's possible. So that's just and it was a lot cheaper to cut it down to a snag than to cut it all the way down. So I'm always frugal, and that might change the people's minds. Yeah.
So what would happen in nature? Obviously we've interrupted it by cutting off that's not part.
Yeah.
That's why.
Same thing would happen in nature. The big limbs fall off in a storm and the trunk is there, or the trunk splits because of lightning cut. When you go hiking, you see it. There's snags in the woods all the time from nature. And then eventually the whole trunk falls, and then it becomes maybe a mother log on the ground. You see trees coming out of the log that's decomposing on the ground. But until that time, she's giving through the roots. Yeah. She's giving resources all through her death. She went through a big mast and produced a ton of acorns. And there were so many acorns. I was like, what? She didn't even produce acorns for 5 years. That was her last gasp of let me have babies. I have so many little white oaks in my yard because I stopped mowing during COVID. Now I'm like, oh, look at these trees. I have a whole tree nursery. But it's really hard to transplant big oaks, and they have big, anyway. So, but she's feeding it through the roots all this time. The mycorrhizal network underground too, yeah.
So you're saying eventually she'll take her own journey and fall and decompose on.
The bark is already coming off. I could take all the bark off this tree today. I just don't, because it would look even uglier, and I kind of like the turkey tails on, But the bark will fall off. It'll become an even uglier snag. The tree is dry and crumbling. I can go like this and it just crumbles.
But it's a way to leave the continuation of the system for now.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Without a risk. That's not going to follow my house.
Right. Because the risk, if it still has branches,
yes, that. Exactly. Yeah. We could talk for a whole class about each one of these cards. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm moving us through, because I want to hit as many kind of metaphors as possible, because you never know what will go on in your head and what change you might spike in your own life or in systems, right? So this is that author, Suzanne Simard. who wrote about the concept of the mother tree that I just described in my white oak, right? And this is new. This is new science. This is not stuff that I would have learned in college, because we are still babies at learning about fungi and the whole fungal kingdom. We know about 10% of what we think there is to know about mushrooms. 10%. I've heard estimates that there might be 2 million kinds of mushrooms out there. We only know about 150,000. I've heard estimates that there might be 5 million kinds of mushrooms out there. We are babies at learning about mushrooms in the mycorrhizal network underground. So just consider that this is awesome new science. Not new. Trees have been doing it for millennia. Not new. New to us. But it's the underground fungal network that allows trees to talk to each other underground. They're sending chemical signals through the air. It's the fungi that are helping them underground. So trees have to live near their family unless a squirrel takes the acorn, 100 miles away to a different ecosystem, or an eagle poops it out somewhere, whatever. Like, of course, they can move. But usually, like my mother tree, the babies are all in a circle around the tree, waiting for their chance. Because one tree just has to grow one tree to population growth. So all the acorns an oak tree makes in its life, the goal is for one of them to turn into an acorn tree. I mean, that's the abundance of nature, right? And the brilliance of squirrels. But these mother trees are actually, that's why the trees are in a circle. They're actually transmitting nutrients through their root network to their babies. And if they're within reach of their babies, all the better. If the squirrel took it out of range, oh well, good luck. And maybe we don't want to reconnect with our family because they're already too close and up in our business, or maybe it's a dysfunctional family. Everybody's both dysfunctional in their own way, right? But in our current world, I mean, I just flew from Florida to my mom to California, visited my brother, and now I'm here. We can put ourselves in cans and vault ourselves around the world. And we live often really far from our families. That was never an option before. So maybe we should actually kind of get the pendulum back to living closer to families. Maybe even multi-generational households, right? Maybe near each other, maybe seniors that don't relate to you living near you so that you can have seniors and they can have little ones, we should broaden our conception of who's family, but also we should be better connected because we're a little disconnected in our society. I'm sure all of you are very well connected with your functional families, but many of us. So, reconnect with your family. So, question mark. So I think, I can spare 90 seconds for this BBC News video because I love it so much. I've probably seen this 100 times. Let's see if it comes through.
Trees may look like solitary individuals, but the ground beneath our feet tells a different story. Trees are secretly talking, trading, and waging war on one another. They do this using a network of fungi that grow around and inside their roots. The fungi provide the trees with nutrients, and in return they receive sugars. But scientists have found this connection runs far deeper than first thought. By plugging into the fungal network, trees can share resources with each other. The system has been renamed Wood Wide Web. It's thought that older trees, fondly known as mother trees, use this fungal network to supply shaded seedlings with sugars, giving them a better chance of survival. Those trees that are sick or dying may dump their resources into the network, which might then be used by healthier neighbours. Plants also use fungi to send messages to one another. If they're attacked, they can release chemical signals through their roots, which can warn their neighbours to raise their defences. But like our internet, the Wood Wide Web has its dark side too. Some orchids hack the system to steal resources from nearby trees, and other species, like the black walnut, spread toxic chemicals through the network to sabotage their rivals. Arboreal cybercrime aside, scientists are still debating why plants seem to behave in such an altruistic way. The hidden network creates a thriving community between individuals. When you're next in woodland, you might like to think of trees as part of a big superorganism, chatting and swapping information and food under your feet.
I love that image at the end where there's just this unseen network, all of this communication happening. So here's where some foresty kind of metaphors can take place, right? Anyone identify so much with like a particular kind of tree, like you are this kind of tree, or maybe you know, like some trees like love to steal all the sun, you know, and you're like, I am me, you know, and then other trees are like happy being underneath, you know, part of the understory. And some trees are like really showy with their fall colors, their blossoms, or really productive. The linden tree is so productive with its blossoms. Anybody like identifies so much with a tree? Hopefully none of you are black walnuts. Spread toxic chemicals underground to sabotage your rivals. You identify with the black walnut? Yeah.
I really like in this area the tulip poplars, mostly because they have those incredibly straight, full trunks that then mushroom out the branches on top. They're problematic. They're wood is soft. They break easily. They don't burn well. They burn like paper, but they are beautiful trees. And I like to see big stands of them all next to each other and with 60-foot straight trunks and all their crafts connected.
Yeah, and they've got those huge leaves and they're really pretty. Those are the ones with the fluffy, like pink blossoms, right? Isn't that the tulip poplar?
No, they have a blossom that looks like it's like a little cone.
Oh, I'm thinking of something different then. Okay.
So the tulip poplars have the square shaped leaf at the top.
Yeah.
Slopes down below that, and they produce a big bright yellow flower with an orange center, and then that becomes a pointed cone that has multiple seeds.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
Well, this thing inside is a fairy sword. It's a little tiny spike with the handle on the bottom where all the seeds are falling off.
Yes.
So that's tulip poplar.
I love it.
Probably one of the most common trees in the forest we have in this area.
Yeah. I've got one in my yard that I actually have to cut because it's growing underneath another tree that is way more valuable to me, and it's competing too much in very limited space, and so I have to sacrifice that one.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that kind of tree. A lot of people, also recognize like the pawpaw tree. And anyone know pawpaws? They're the North America's only native fruit tree, I believe. I think they're fruit bushes, but not fruit trees that are native to the U.S. So try a pawpaw if you ever have the chance. They're not sold in stores because they're only ripe like for 5 minutes and then they go mushy. So like, service berries and some other fruits, they're not commonly sold. But the cybercrime piece with the BBC is interesting to me because, we're all different kinds of trees, right? In our metaphor here, but we all have to like be stuck in certain situations where we work well together. And it's kind of a false ecosystem until it's a real thriving ecosystem. Like until you kind of get to know each other and you're like, oh, she doesn't need as much water as she does. And so you treat, like people the way you need to but we kind of get stuck in these like forced ecosystems with each other where we don't know about each other and everybody's just kind of fending for themselves. And we don't have the opportunity to be like generous, like, oh, let's share resources with everybody that's in this room that we've never met. Yeah. I don't care about you because I don't know where you're going after this. Why should I share resources with him? Right. So we have to think about like, what is our bigger community on Earth? What's our community here in America? Is it just this classroom? Is it the whole Hall of Science? Is it like the College of Arts and Sciences? Is it the whole university? Is it just undergrad? Like who's our forest? And how do we make our forest stronger? Might need more resources. We might need different trees. Might need some mycelium to like help with communication. Anyway, just metaphors, right? Anybody? Oh, sorry. No. We already watched you. Loved it, but no. Yeah, well done. So here's what I'd love for you to share with each other, kind of a pair share. So we talked about the mycorrhizal network, right? They're helping pass postcards from tree to tree. And this was from 1912. Right? November 20th, 12? Because that was when you could just write to somebody in a city with no address. And this is the AM pickup, right? The 7 a.m. pickup, because we used to have AM and PM pickup and delivery because that was how we communicated, right? So this is a very human, but tree, it's on paper. Like the way of communicating is we have to be like, here's my message. Now I'm going to give it to this person and they're going to take it over. But that's what the mycorrhizal network does. We're trying to kill the U.S. Postal Service right now. Don't get me started on that. But what I want you to share with the person, maybe you two can share with each other, and I think everybody else has a pair almost. Why don't my two BCs share with each other and each other? Just share the last, like, I mean, it's holiday season, so this might be easier than usual, but like, what notes have you written lately? Or if you haven't written any, what notes have you received lately? So anything goes. Share with your partner. Yeah. So you're out there. I'm now on each screen. This is my life, and I'm a kind of negative testing. Well, it's what what's that? It's all right. And right. Have you seen that? But it's like, and you and Scott, they send over the top. That's that. Like, how I do them, yes. What's guns? Plant-based classes in the spell everything's I should always just a little less say and watch you have a pen but second about it still all other fields saying you I plan out that big night including words in mind that sort of with I think that like Bob is nice because sort of my path like really take this mess it's had 2 years I hear like some my daughter the next morning so start so make really go like it's you know you the nickel I love them say the last part I wrote this at the same sort of my it's like and that's what I did. So this is my opinion. Such as said, it's sorrow. It did feel like that. It's starting being like, oh, just face. I like doing us. But she, I think during my side of this, actually said, Grace, it's probably be yes. Like, anyone want to share either something they heard or something that they said?
You're fun with us. It's my no, that's what I saw. I love it. We're talking so much to you tonight. I hang out. It's the how it's been, you know, we're up there. My lunch project. There's stuff down from it. Well, what's one thing that you heard? It's what that I feel like saying the start your inspired her inspired you. I know to go back and put so in Holly. Feel way that you have this short and history. I know it's how it's inspired up. I never had that house. You're like little children or scared. You're a child. Oh yeah, I think what time? It's over there. Oh, there.
last
I said, getting like, depending on so I don't and yes, enthusiastic. I'll be the loneries, sound and sing the road to them. So next week, I've been hard. I also improvement after to get what I'm thinking. And then getting like I need so good. Even though I'm super right there, absolutely. I'm sorry, I don't think that's but. And I did eventually that it was start. All right. Well, thank you for sharing, everybody. You don't have to stop talking, but I'm curious to hear some of the examples. So I heard a few up here. Anybody from the back? Oh, we're getting points to that. Okay, tell us. Your great was actually once I went well, I was doing
I enjoyed it great 27 years in the federal government. And so there's something new to me called a kudos board where they send off well wishes to folks leaving the office. And so I received a ton of notes, get a kudos card. And I felt and it was overwhelming. There were people that I heard from that I didn't even realize I impacted in any way. And so I ran through the holidays and I just filled joy. It was really nice.
Wow. And so are you an adjunct here now or
No, I'm actually, I'm working in the Office of General Counsel.
Oh, great. I was just going to say that if when you're a professor, those notes from students like come in or like evaluation, and it's like, oh my gosh, they were listening. Yeah, that's great. Well, welcome to American. I'm not that like much of a veteran to be able to welcome you, but I've been here longer than 2 weeks. So I'm confident. Yes. What's your name?
Kenesha.
Kenesha, great to meet you. Yeah. So writing notes is, again, like kind of a dying art. Like some people can't even read, handwriting of other people, like especially if it's cursive. My kid luckily went to Spanish original school here in the district where they learned cursive for Spanish and English with block letters. And so when my mom, who wrote to my kids in cursive in English, would write her cards, my kids were like, I can't read this. Something's not computing. But like a lot of cursive this week, we can't read. So we just got it. And not to mention the fine motor skills of like what kids develop in their brains by using their hands. And so writing is such an important skill that we are losing out of in favor of more efficient technology and more accessible. Of course, we can both dictate, My son has an IP, he's dyslexic. Like I get that there are a lot of adaptive techniques and technologies that we can use, but writing is from the heart. Like I don't want to receive a typed love note from somebody, Let's write more notes. And fine, sending a text is adorable. Sending an email is lovely. But I'm not talking about that. We need too much of that. I'm talking about write a note, draw a smiley face and send it. It doesn't even have to be writing, right? So, yeah, that's my suggestion. So let's breathe again. You're welcome to stand. You're welcome to stand this whole time. I don't love sitting. So if you want to stand and just be in the against the room or just continue to sit and breathe, but try to keep your arms up because it increases our lung capacity and gets our spine stretching against gravity so that we can increase the space between our vertebrae. Spine, very important. Chakras being opened and cleared as we breathe, getting more energy and awakening our brains, right? Movement awakens our brains. Breath can help our mood and our learning. And again, because this is such an important tool, the breath is such an important tool. Don't have it up on here now. Holly, you can't answer this. Holly's the over to you. So I already next to be in there. How do we relax our body using our breath? How do we do it? Don't look at her. She may be communicating the answer without knowing it. Oops. How do we do it? Using our breath. Yes. There's only so many ways you can use your breath. Breathing it in, breathing out. Yes. And if we emphasize one of those things, we relax our body. Which one? Breathing in. Close. Oh, yeah. 50. No, not that. Close. I was like, so emphasizing the exhale, making the exhale longer relaxes your body because you're not running from anything. You got time. In fact, my best fall asleep tip, this is what I do. It does not have to be 4, 7, and 8, but if you take a big inhale for 4 counts, hold it for 7 and release it for 8, you are lengthening the exhale. Let's try right now. Take a big inhale, breathe it all out and breathe it in. 1, 2, big inhale, 3, 4, now hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now let it out. 2, 3, 4, slowly. 6, 7, 8. That's 1 round of 4, 7, 8 breathing. If you do it 2 to 3 times, you can breathe normally in between. Just go back to normal breathing and sit down if you want. But if you do that 2 or 3 times, like when you're ready for bed or you need to calm down or you just got caught up in traffic and your heart's racing, that sends your body the message, your parasympathetic nervous system, that you can calm down now. You are safe. Just extend the exhale. Conversely, since we're on the topic, what happens when we focus on the inhale? Do we relax? What?
You get stressed.
We get energy. And it might be seen as stress. But when we're tired, what does our body? Big long inhale. Big long inhale. We're going to get more oxygen. We're going to get more energy. That's what we do when we're yawning. And then big quick exhale. So that's the opposite of 4, 7, 8 breathing. So get energy, big inhale. Relax, big exhale. Okay. Now you've taken strategies of stress management, health 250. That's my main message for the whole course because nobody teaches breathing. But of course, we want the oxygen, right? Trees like grab that oxygen and through photosynthesis, take the sugars to build their carbon stores and release the oxygen for us, so it's a symbiotic thing. And if you look at your hand, it might look kind of similar to that because there's a lot of similarities, right, in how things look. And when we look at things, so we can improve. This is like counterintuitive, right? That by looking in nature, we make our executive functioning more effective. How is that? I don't know. But again, science, not my opinion. So the crazy thing is our brains can't tell the difference when we're tricking them. So if you fake smile, your brain like produces some endorphins, even though you're just faking it. And when we look at pictures of nature, our brain goes, nature, yay! Even though we're not in nature, we're just looking at pictures. So having like, we should have forest murals, like big pictures of nature in this classroom. Like, if this can do that, just looking at faking it, you don't even have to go bathe in the forest. Why don't we have pictures of nature up everywhere if we can just trick our brains? I mean, better to go, better to breathe the real air, but we don't even have to look at real nature. We don't even have to really smile. We can just trick our brains, look at nature, make smile, and we'll be great. So a few more before we open it up for questions. So we're 7 minutes left. So growing a thick skin, metaphorically, is different than what trees do to resist pest fires, etc. But we can still learn from trees that to resist those barbs, right? Or, I don't know, the skin is the largest organ, so the bark and the skin don't really like make a super great comparison with trees and people, but we do, like, especially if you're online getting feedback, right? In a way, you're an influencer online, you're getting feedback, right? You have to have kind of a thick skin because people are going to say things about you and how you look and what you say. I'm not an influencer. I couldn't take the pressure. But that's what a lot of people say when they're like in the public eye and they're getting a lot of feedback that's not all positive. And it's not personal. They shouldn't take it personally. But you have to know like when to be like, thanks for your input, or when not even to look at the comments, right? So we just have to like gauge that. We didn't have to used to gauge that, and now we do, just because there's just more incoming. So we got to really think about how are we developing our thick skin? Maybe our thick skin is just not looking at social media because we don't want things to come up and surprise us when we scroll. Oh, there's somebody being shot. That's not what I was trying for on my break, right? So maybe just boundaries are the thick skin. Like, I'm not going to look at that now, or I'm not going to engage with that app or engage with the news or whatever it is. So thick skin might look like boundaries, but it's still a worthy metaphor. And one of, I think it's Miguel Ruiz's 4 assumptions. There's 4 rules, just don't take things personally. So the forest doesn't take a fire personally.
Yeah. Vegan does. That's mine tree.
The which ones?
The tree that we're making up in 3 weeks.
The black walnut. The black walnuts. I thought you were talking about the poisoned oak. There were oak trees that were purposely poisoned by a developer in Washington, D.C. in the Southeast because the fine that you pay as a developer is lower for a dead tree than an alive tree. So they drilled holes in the base of the tree, put poison in, covered it up, and we caught them. And I know where this developer lives, and it's all the self-control that I have not to leave them some electric honey on there. No, and so they were caught. You can look at us in the Washington Post, and they were, they admitted that it was just because they were trying to avoid the fines. They didn't want to pay the live white oak cutting down fine. They wanted to pay the dead tree cutting down fine. Boy. Anyway, I'm going to skip through this, but you'll get the idea, because the roots and the branches, remember when we think about the tree and that mycelium network underground, they all look the same, and our brains look the same too. In fact, we call dendrites in our brain, it's named after dendron, which is Greek for tree. So this is like more sciencey stuff than we probably need, but look at the pictures, right? That's the form, right? You start from a seed, you grow, and then it branches out, and then it grows, it branches out. And same thing underground, right? The mycelial networks and the hyphae do the same thing. They grow until they have to branch, and they grow and they explore. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing in our brains. So it's not exactly biomimicry, right? It's just an efficient network. And so we can notice when things work in nature, and we didn't design our brains, but we design a lot of other systems like the World Wide Web that just happens to be kind of like mycelium, right, in the Wood Wide Web. But biomimicry, and Adrienne Marie Brown writes a lot about this, biomimicry is a way that we can look for solutions in the real world to identify what we need to be doing better technologically, as humans, as ecosystems, et cetera. Yeah. So yeah, the roots piece and that balancing piece when we were doing Vrikshasana, like thinking about our roots being strong underground is really what holds trees up. And right, we can maybe metaphorize that of like our roots make us strong, like how we were raised makes us strong. You know, did we have like a stable childhood where we could like grow a deep taproot? Or like maybe like some trees, something got chopped off at some point in our development and we had to grow a different way. Metaphorically, like there are lots of things that happen to us and we are resilient humans. We adapt. Sometimes you can't see it, but we adapt. Sometimes you can see it and we adapt. Trees too. They don't have control over whether they grew in the path of a power line. And so when we cut off their limbs, they're like, oh, I guess I'll grow this way, you know, and they adapt. We have to too. But also keep in mind that the storms of politics, right, the winds of change allow us to get more resilient, allow us to get, just like trees get deeper rooted. We too are strengthened by stress. That's another message of strategies of stress management. You cannot grow. You can't grow muscle without stressing out the muscle, right? Exercising it to the point of failure, that it breaks and repairs, and that's how it grows. The plant is going to be resistant to wind, and that's how it strengthens its cellulosic walls in order to be erect. And so winds and storm, we shouldn't be like, oh, so much stress, oh, so much wind. Oh, what are we going to do about the storm of down the street, right? That's making us stronger. But we have to look at it as a resilience building exercise and not like, oh, we can go off on vacation, have that margarita in the tropics that Dr. Ruth was talking about in her last session. A tree is stuck. They just got to stay and adapt. And sometimes we do too. Very easy to want to flee DC, but we're going to stay and adapt. So resilience is developed from challenges. That's the way of trees, the way of humans, the way of life. Yeah.
But maybe adding connect these cards, right? So maybe we don't have flexible and
Absolutely.
communicate through our underground network
Yes.
to strengthen us while we are facing adversity.
I love it. Yes.
Remember that.
We can organize through Signal and, you know, like be untrackable.
Hang on.
Right. Just writing notes, just sending postcards. Thank you. You know, so I work a lot with teams and with nonprofit wellness. We talk about, you know, access teams, educator teams. And the thing that's not going to AI us out, like we can't AI our way into psychological safety, right? We are still humans. We still have to feel safe around each other. Quickest way of feeling sort of safe is actually to get vulnerable, because it's through vulnerability, the courageous vulnerability that Brené Brown writes about a lot, that inspires empathy, and only empathy can inspire trust. So if we want to get, like if I really wanted to build this team, if you all were my class, we'd be talking a lot, even more, about things that were really kind of personal, maybe a little vulnerable, because then we inspire empathy between humans, and then we develop trust. And so psychological safety is born of that trust, but you can't force it. You can't just like put it in vitamin water, be like, okay, we're all going to have trust after we drink. Nope. So if we're thinking about like how to build great teams, how to be better teams, how to survive AI, right? How to be human in an age of AI, we have to think about this stuff. And it's all the risks, right? The vulnerability that builds the trust to make people feel psychologically safe. So it's almost like counterintuitive in the sense that we have to be weak before we can be strong. Well, we view vulnerability as weak, but it's not. It's that we have to let ourselves out for other people to commit. Courage and vulnerability, kind of the same thing. That inspires empathy. That inspires trust. So we'll stop there. There's a couple of the cards that we didn't go over yet that I like to, you know, save for sort of future discussions, right? So when I work with teams, it's like, oh, you could do this every quarter. You could raise a question like maybe, in fall, being like, okay, what are you letting go? Because everything has to be shed in order to make room for new growth. And then we could all talk about what we were letting go that season or what we were making room for to leaf out in the spring or whatever. So there's a lot of ways that you can just use these cards, which this is just a deck of cards with breathing, be like a tree, immune boosters, and team care quotes. And I use them all the time in my teaching and my facilitating and my workshops because they inspire discussion. And that's what really we need to sort of build those bonds is discussion. You don't need to know facts about trees, although it's interesting to learn about trees. What we need to do is talk about stuff with each other. So that's what all of these were designed to do, is kind of like learn some stuff that's useful, sure, but let's talk about it with each other because that's where we get the trust. So these were the kind of summaries of the actions. So in case you leave wondering what to do these things. And some of you keep journals, trees do too. So maybe you want to, as you were saying, writing is a powerful tool, and we have the ability to add so much flourish to the rings of our journal. So maybe you draw, maybe you sketch, maybe you gratitude journal, maybe you journal about what's going on. But keeping a record, maybe sharing it with others, is another way to be like a tree. So I'll stop there, and we have a few minutes. I'd love for your reactions, not really questions as much. I'm not a tree expert. I'm just a tree enthusiast. So I'm curious, what is like coming up for you? What do you see any metaphors now that like maybe you didn't walk in seeing, or do you have questions about any of the cards or the concepts that I brought up today?
Yeah. So I live in Vermont, and sometimes the stress of being in DC, and I can't wait to just be walking with the woods.
Yeah.
And I just long for it. And I'm so peaceful in the woods. And I couldn't explain it, but now I can understand why.
Yes.
And the feeling I had, so real.
Yeah.
There are no words for it.
Well, here's a question for you. What similar environment have you found in DC that brings you that peace?
Skill lessons.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's possible to find a place?
Going to the Kennedy Center and music and being with people, but I don't do that. Go to, I just sort of disconnect and forget out, and I get into thinking about for me.
I'm happy to show you where all the forests are released.
I mean, it would be amazing, right, if you wouldn't have to like put yourself on a plane to go experience that release of being in a forested environment.
Sometimes just walking with my dog, it's just playful, right? Curious. Even being in a rock park, there's that.
Yeah, Rock Creek it's such a sad forest, but my mood changes immediately when I walk into Rock Creek Park, like any wooded area, but especially Rock Creek Park, which I've lived here 30 years. I use it a lot. And I've biked, I've walked, I've run, that I immediately get a different feeling, no matter the season, when I walk into Rock Creek. And maybe it's me, like maybe I'm like, I'm here, like maybe it's created.
No, I think I'm reconnecting with the family. So, but just going down to the Almond and just where all the restaurants are, and down along the water and seeing people strolling on nice days.
It is nice. There's a labyrinth down there.
It's a real big patch.
Yep.
Nice. Even if it's the.
And it's also your choice, right? You like to go down to down Waterfront Park, but you said, like, there's a difference between me being like, somebody jerk probably voted for somebody I didn't vote for, and like, and they'll get the buying Lululemon stuff, and you believe that over crazy crap, but that's like a different attitude, which I sometimes have, as opposed to like, I'm going to be down on this waterfront, enjoy the labyrinth, the water, the ducks, and like my common fellow humans that no matter what I all believe. That's my mindset.
We all want to be happy. Now, there's not one person down there, I don't care what party they belong to, doesn't want to be happy.
Right.
And that's our connection.
Exactly. And as humans, we overthink things, but really, it's as simple as that.
Right. Forget it. Yes, Holly.
Do we keep these cards or taking them away from us? So I'm going to take them away from you because I use them as teaching tools, but I can think you can buy your own deck of cards at nonprofitwellness.org. I'm on the $25. I have a deck here today. If anyone that comes with a really cheap easel. I didn't realize how cheap this was when I ordered it.
But it like that she does you can get it is great.
What do you think that? And then what the idea is like maybe you're like right at fast, right? And so you're putting on like a different one every week. There's 52 parts of the deck, so you can find it on a week for a year. But there's breathing cards, and these are quotes, so it's like maybe you put them on the back of the bathroom stall or whatever. But it's just so people can see them. They're dead trees. But this is 100% post-consumer waste. I'm a nut when I print about printing on recycled paper or cardstock. And so it says on the back, they're 100% post-consumer. I have to go to California to print these. I probably don't have to, but that's the company that I've always used. Anyway, so I would like to take the Be Like a Tree cards back, that you're welcome to take the purple of your sketches and frame them, continue them, etc. And nonprofitwellness.org is the nonprofit that co-founded. So if you have questions or you want to get more materials, there's a lot of free downloadable stuff on the website too. This is the only thing that costs money. But thank you so much for coming. It's always fun to talk about trees. I love talking about trees to everybody. And I will be around for the rest of the day, but I'm also happy to talk to you about whatever. I don't do anything with trees on Canvas. You should talk to these two if you want. If you have any Canvas comments about trees.